I'm on now. It showed me as a participant view initially.
Okay. All right, well, I guess I will start it off if that's okay with everyone. My name is Lauren Kirk. I work for the City of Encinitas. I'm the project manager for the Verde Avenue Pedestrian Rail Undercrossing Project. And I'd like to first start off by introducing Lillian Doherty, our director. Lillian?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. I did want to take a few moments to acknowledge that given with the pandemic and a number of the resource challenges our city has experienced, I understand that we are moving forward with the CPP project or CPP on the Verde project this evening, and that may have some questions for the public. So one of the things I wanted to make sure I was clear about is that a CPP is necessary for us to secure all the entitlements necessary to move forward and advance the project to secure either grant funding, stimulus funding, or any other sources of funding that may be available in the future. With respect to city funding, as per the budget discussions that were had earlier this year, this is not a funded project. We are moving forward to secure the entitlements with the long-term goal that we would be able to secure any infrastructure funds or grant funding that would be available in the future. I do appreciate everybody's participation this evening, because nevertheless, this is an important project for the city, and receiving your input and sharing where the project is now is absolutely critical to having a successful project in the future. With that, I will turn it back over to Lauren to move forward with the details of the project. You are muted, Lauren. Sorry.
Story of my Zoom life. So for the coastal development permit and the development review, the alphabet CPC right here, for the open house meeting, this meeting requires us to complete the entitlements for the CDP and DR requirements for the project. So currently funding has not been identified for the construction phase. However, the city is finalizing the project design and permitting while evaluating all grants and other funding sources. Stimulus funding sources. So I'd like to introduce myself, and the rest of the team will introduce themselves as we go along. Again, at the beginning I said my name is Lauren Kirk. I am the City of Encinitas project manager for this. Aaron?
Yeah, I'm Aaron Rubio. I'm the current project manager for HDR, in charge of the design here. I've been involved with the project over the last few years and helped deliver the 90% design.
And I'm George Rosca, also with HDR, providing project oversight for Aaron and the team. And I've been with the project since its inception.
And I'm Mike Peltz, and we're a landscape architecture firm located in Solana Beach. I'm an Encinitas resident and have also been involved in the project since its beginning.
All right, so for tonight, our agenda is as follows. We're going to show you the project location, which we can see here. We're going to go over the goals, the history of the project, some of the project features, the comment and incorporation from the last CPP, and we'll go over next steps. So as you can see here to the right of the slide, we have where we'll be crossing the railroad. It's between Litz and Verde on San Elijo. It's the red triangle that you see right there. Next slide, please. I believe Aaron.
So yeah, this is just a more detailed zoom in of the project location. You can see our major constraints are San Elijo Avenue to the east. We have the railroad going through the middle of the project and Coast Highway to the west. So now I will kick it to George to go over our project goals and our project history.
So the project is trying to achieve the following three goals. Number one, it's safety and providing a safe, protected path across the railroad. Everyone, all the residents here know that how active the trains are here through this area, but also the residents as they've been utilizing the resource along the right-of-way there. Also to provide access. This is definitely a kind of a trying to get pedestrians access from the east side of the railroad right-of-way to the coastal side, which is an important public resource. And so providing that access to pedestrians and bicyclists alike is critical. And you'll see later on all of the coordination that has gone in for this project with other projects that have taken place already here in the area. And then lastly, the ease of use, providing something that is convenient, that can be easily navigated by pedestrians. Everything from moms with their strollers, right, taking their young children across, to bicyclists who want to have something wide enough to get through and be able to pass each other up and things like that. So really, mobility was one of the key goals here that we really wanted to touch upon and accomplish with this project. And as we dive into the project history and project features, you will see the lengths that this project team has gone through to make sure that we can achieve all three of these goals. Aaron, next slide. So a little bit of project history. I will not bore you with too much of it, since I think the interest here is to dive into what it is the project today. Going back to over 10 years ago, the city had gone through a project study report in 2009, where it really defined some high-level goals for this project. It was really together with three other areas considered for at-grade crossing or grade separations. Each area had its own different themes. This particular location was given a land theme. So as Mike Peltz will be elaborating on, you'll see that theme come to life here. And later on in 2015, as some funding was secured, there was an initiation of looking at doing an at-grade crossing, which started off initially at Montgomery Avenue. But then as the Coastal Mobility and Livability Study Working Group came together in 2016 and 2017, that looked at the entire corridor more holistically and trying to make sure that other factors were considered. And so the location then changed and shifted slightly to the north to Verde as a more adequate location to meet the project goals. And so in November 2017, the project changed officially to Verde. Next slide. We continued on with preliminary design in 2017 and early 2018. And just a little over 3 years ago is when we did our first open house meeting at Cardiff Elementary, just over to the right of that photo there, and probably just a little bit back as well. And so that's where the project features were presented in a little more detail. There was a lot of input provided. We took that input and we continued advancing towards a 90% design from September through July of last year. And so today we are here to have a second open house to give a status on all of those updates to the project features. I mentioned that this project was coordinated with a plethora of other projects, including the Coastal Rail Trail, which you see here in the picture on top over to the right. This is Chesterfield Avenue looking to the north. And so this entire area has seen significant improvements at Chesterfield Drive, continuing with the double track that you see now up there to the north. Future potential Cardiff trenching. We wanted to make sure that we're not precluding something like that from happening in the future. The Birmingham Streetscape project, the Chesterfield Quiet Zone that's already in place right now, and the rail corridor vision study together with the active transportation plan. So we've taken all efforts here to make sure that it's coordinated with all of these projects. And I'll transfer it to Aaron here to speak specifically on the project features as they are today in the design.
Yeah, so if you bear with me with this engineering style drawing, we have our main constraints being connecting San Alejo on the east, getting pedestrians to cross over at grade the existing Encinitas Coastal Rail Trail, sloping down to cross under the railroad tracks, and back up to cross at grade at Highway 101. So we have landings at both the Verde and List Avenue intersections at San Alejo. We provided both a direct access path with stairs and an ADA path from Verde, which uses the Coastal Rail Trail and then down the longer ramp. Same thing with List. We have both the ADA longer ramp and a more direct route for more direct access. We are tying into the existing Coastal Rail Trail at its current elevation. So there's minimal change or modification to the rail trail. Once we cross over the rail trail is when we start the excavation and sloping down to get under the railroad. The crossing, the 3-span bridge crossing will be very similar in all aspects to the Santa Fe crossing that's a few miles north of this location. Once we cross under the tracks, we do have a retaining wall that is retaining the tracks. It's about a maximum of 10 feet, and it varies in height to less than that. We have about a 3 to 4 foot elevation difference in the passing under the railroad to Highway 101. There's a small retaining wall there as well. And once we're at grade at Highway 101, there will be a signalized intersection similar to Santa Fe to get across. And that about sums up our current project features. Here's just the engineering elevation of the bridge. It's 3-span bridge, very similar to Santa Fe. So we do have the crossings at San Alejo Avenue. There'll be these flashing beacons, pedestrian activated flashing beacons. And then across Highway 101, we'll have a signal, regular pedestrian activated traffic signal. There'll be no turning allowed. There'll just be straight through movements for the traffic, but we will have signals there similar to Santa Fe. So now I'm going to kick it over to Mike Peltz to talk about our previous concepts that we brought to at the original open house in 2018 and how we've addressed some of those comments in our design.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning into this. We appreciate your participation. What you see on the screen right now is the plan that we showed, in 2018 at the first workshop. And we were challenged, as George had mentioned early on in the presentation, to kind of elaborate on a land theme. And so we had several ideas and we kind of threw them at you guys, and you responded well, and appreciate all of the comments we got during the workshop and also the written comments that came afterwards. We listened, and so what we've done is simplified this design and all the patterns. The layout is the same as far as stair locations, ramp locations, and general walkway. But what's changed are all of these curlicues. And if you remember, for those of you that participated back in 2018, we had ideas of painted rocks and different ways to express the idea of bringing land elements into the project. So we've eliminated all of those. What we did hear pretty loud and clear was that you preferred something simpler, a toned down version, simplified version of the design. And at the time, those participants were more enamored with the Santa Fe crossing and liked the feel, the aesthetic of that crossing, and asked that this crossing mimic that to as much as possible. And also had asked that all of the plant material be either California native or low water requiring plants. And I'll get into the plants here in a minute, but we heard those comments. We also heard that you didn't want any trees located within the limits of work. And so, although there are, you see the 4 trees at the bottom of the screen across the street, across the 101, those are remaining. Those are outside of our limit area. But other than that, we're not planning on planting any new trees. So trying to be very much aware of your views and not block any views, and actually trying to hopefully improve them by taking down a couple of the, I think they're acacia that are growing up and kind of blocking views at this point. So hopefully that will be improved as this project advances. Next slide. Some of the features that we plan to incorporate into the design are shown here. There's a couple of pictures from the Santa Fe crossing. The cairn in the upper left corner is similar to what we will be doing. Not sure that we'll do the blue-green glass slag that you see there on that cairn, but we'll do something to identify this as a crossing, just as that cairn does at Santa Fe. The fencing that we're proposing would match the cable rail fence used at Santa Fe and also along the rail trail. You see those images on the screen. The benches would match the rail trail bench. The concrete without the swirly patterns that we were proposing 2 or 3 years ago is now really a simplified version of that, and it's just a concrete, colored concrete, maybe a sand finish with a sand texture on it, and very much simplified from the first idea that we had. Beach cobble would be used underneath the bridge or the undercrossing, where it's dark and plants aren't going to do too well. So, and this follows the example set at Santa Fe as well. So flanking the walkway as it crosses under the tracks on either side would have beach cobble as its definition or edge. There's a sketch shown in the lower left that is just kind of a quick view of what it would look like crossing under the undercrossing, looking out towards the 101. So the cars you see in the background are cars on the 101. And you also see a low wall there. And Aaron had mentioned that there's a grade differential of about 3, maybe 4 feet between the low point in the undercrossing and the highway road elevation. And that's what that wall is indicating. That's about the height we're going to expect to see. Next slide. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the plant material. I think in the previous rendition 2 or 3 years ago, we had a lot of natives, but not all natives. We were using something that was colorful and to our minds helped solidify the theme of land. But we heard you very loudly and clearly, and I appreciate the comments so much, that you wanted to see something similar to Santa Fe, and then also wanted to see primarily California natives. And so what we've done is we looked at Santa Fe, and a lot of the plants there are not California native. They're bougainvillea, and there are lots of other types of species that aren't native to Southern California, especially coastal Southern Cal. And so we've taken that as an example, but tried to fill in with all California natives. I think we have one Baja native that that we'd like to at least suggest using. Everything else is low water requiring, California native, coastal, suitable. And we also followed the city has, since the 2018 open house that we had, the city has developed a coastal bluff plant list that they prefer be used on public projects, and especially ones with any kind of slope. And so we've taken that list and selected plant material from that list. And what you see in front of you now is the collection of those plants, and they range in height from very low to the ground, meaning maybe 12 to 18 inches tall, up to 3 to 4 feet tall. We do have roosts in the mix, but we're considering maybe eliminating roosts just because of the height it may attain. And so since we're looking at the plant palette still, that one's on this list at this point, but I am a little concerned that it may be a little bit too tall for some of the areas of the site. So that one, just look at it and know that next time it may not be there, but we'll look at it. And I'd love to hear your feedback on that plant as well. And with that, I think my portion is completed, and we can go to the next slide.
I believe this is now my portion. So for the next milestones, we hope to finish the design here in summer 2021. And then with construction, again, as I mentioned in the first slide, it is pending funding. So again, we are looking for grant and stimulus money that could get this thing in the ground. Next slide, please. So questions and comments. So please type your questions in the Q&A function. I believe if everyone has the same interface here, it should be down the middle of your screen where it says Q&A. So we already have 2 questions asked. And so we can answer these questions in the order that they are received. So I guess I will start reading these as they're going to come in. So the first one is from Mr. David Solomon. See, what are the dots on San Elijo by the crosswalks? I think he's referring to the construction notes. If you're referring to the I don't think it's on the plans he's referring to. I think he's referring to the rendering, the watercolor. Chugging along. There we go. I believe he means these black dots. Originally, over here to the right, there was a series of notes. So each one are these labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, and it just kind of points out what each one is, that it's the black dot is touching. Next one is from Diana Nunez. So the project cost we're estimating to be around $9 million. So next one's from Julie Thunder. They keep on moving on me. Can you explain the funding deficit? Jill, can you take this one?
Sure. So we have a wide variety of project needs throughout the city. And as we're developing our budget and as we're getting through COVID, we've seen our revenues decline a little bit over the past year, and we're expecting them to be flat So we have a lot of important projects for the community, but this is one that we will be seeking grant funding for, and looking for other opportunities to fund this project in the near term while we wait for funding to come along to get to the construction phase.
All right. The next one comes from, thank you very much, Jill. The next one comes from David Solomon. Fantastic job on the plant palette. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you very much for the comment. I'll move on here, Mr. Solomon. Next one is from David Solomon as well. When do you think you will start and end? I'm assuming he means construction. Again, with the construction, we're hoping to start in summer 2021. Aaron, do you guys have a estimated duration you think that it would take?
Duration of construction.
Yes.
It would most likely be definitely under 2 years, probably closer to a year to a year and a half for the bridge construction.
Okay.
And I would say it's similar to the El Portal construction that's going out there right now. The only thing that really has an impact on construction duration is when you go out to bid, because MCTD has only certain windows where you could take the track out of service to install the bridge. And those happen between typically early October through sometime in March. We've seen them allow sometimes windows outside of that. But like, let's say, for example, the contractor is given, a go in like December, January, and there's a lot of prep work that needs to happen. So then he's already on that April window and he can't really do anything until he gets that weekend, long weekend extended shutdown. So it'll depend on exactly the timing.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, I'm scrolling back here. Okay, open questions. Okay, I see. Next one's from Robert Bennett. Very excited to see this project completed. Who should we talk to? To help funding? Currently, I thank you very much for the support and when to help out with the funding. The city is taking care of that with researching grant and stimulus funds. If there's anything extra that Jill would want to add, more happy to jump in with that one. But I believe we did cover it with the grant and stimulus money. Yes.
Yeah, so we've applied for funding for this project in the past through the CRISI program, which is a Federal Railroad Administration funded program. And we will be looking into opportunities like that or the upcoming stimulus funding that we're expecting to see. But if you know of any grant programs or you see anything, then you can certainly send that information to Lauren. His contact information is at the end of the presentation.
All right, next one comes from David Solomon again. I'm referring to the slide with the crosswalk. Aaron, you want to jump us back there? I was asking if there's an aid for blinking lights to help us cross San Elijo.
It might be the shark teeth that he's referring to.
Oh, those shark teeth? Those shark teeth that we're looking at are to let you know that you're coming up to this crosswalk.
Yeah, so the flash, there'll be flashers on either side of the street, but no flashers within the street itself.
All right. If there's any more questions, we will all be on here for a bit longer. Okay, one from CM Lindis. I'll read this one out. I don't know if everyone can see what's being typed. Please feel free to send your support for the funding of this project to me, Councilmember Joy Lindes. I apologize if I butchered your last name there. At jlyndes@encinitasca.gov. That's jlyndes@encinitasca.gov. We're all working together to find funding for this project, and your comments and support are always valuable. Thank you very much, Councilmember. The next one is from, Julie Thunder. Is there a plan for parking along San Elijo Avenue at the crossing entrances? I expect people want to park and cross the beach. Aaron?
So the direction of the project was to limit impact to the existing parking as much as possible without actually adding improved parking. So the area between Verde and List will leave as it is in the existing condition, available to park, but we're not adding parking stalls or striping for that.
Okay, thank you very much. See, we've already answered David Solomon's, correct? I was asking if there was an aid for blinking lights to help us cross San Elijo. Yes, we did. Anonymous attendee. I've attended all the prelim public meetings and appreciate you all having listened to public comment. Especially appreciate the thoughtfulness of plant selection and design. Thank you very much.
So we'll sit tight a couple more minutes and see if anyone else has any more questions pop up. Oh, here comes one. I'll let Lauren take it.
Robert Bennett, will landscaping continue through to Montgomery? It seems like landscaping has been waiting for future additions all along the trail. My understanding is that we will only be doing landscaping within the project boundaries. Julie Thunder, can you share how this recording will be available? Jill?
We have a development services public notices page. That's where information, including the link to tonight's Zoom meeting was. And once we have completed tonight's recording, we will post that video in that same location. So it's City of Encinitas Development Services public notices.
The next one is from Rob Fleener. How can you justify this crossing that only gets people to the beach when Northwest Leucadia has no crossings to reach the beach, post office, restaurants, parks, and public transportation for the many apartment dwellers who need public transportation? It sounds more of a programmatic question, Jill.
Yeah, so one of the projects that staff is recommending for funding for next year is an at-grade crossing corridor study. So that we can bring additional crossings to city residents in a more cost-effective manner. This is something that's been championed by the council members, and we're excited to partner with the federal agencies and NCTD and the California CPUC to see if we may have some opportunities to bring crossings that are at grade to fruition. I think it's going to be a challenge, but we're up to the challenge and we're going to do our best to bring some new crossings forward.
Thank you very much, Jill. The next one comes from anonymous attendee. 100% for this and looking forward to crossing to the beach legally. Thank you. David Solomon. So what are the next steps and how can we help? Well, as the next steps I indicated is we're going to be finishing design, and then the project will be going into construction once we get the stimulus money. The council member did provide their contact information for you to get a hold of them. The next question is from Julie Thunder, but we already did a study. It was called the Coastal Working Group, something or other. Please don't delay. Leucadia is long overdue. Jill?
Yep, I'll take that one. So the Coastal Livability Working Group looked at crossings in the area. That is absolutely correct. The next step now we have to get past is the regulatory hurdle. So we need, there is Federal Railroad Administration guidance that they generally don't support new at-grade pedestrian crossings for safety reasons. So we will need to work hard to be able to justify the need for crossings in our community through the California Public Utilities Commission and the Federal Railroad Authority. So the Coastal Livability Working Group was looking at some more kind of community-based factors, and this will be a technical study that will provide the evidence we need to convince the decision makers that we can safely provide at-grade crossings.
Another one from Julie. Thanks, Jill, but how does the Verde fit into the regulatory hurdle?
So Verde is not an at-grade crossing. Verde is an undercrossing. So this project was able to be approved because we safely create a mechanism for pedestrians and cyclists to get under the railroad tracks. What we're looking to study through the corridor is crossing at grade.
I believe it looks like it's about it.
Give it another minute or so just to see if anybody else has any final questions. All right, we'll give it one more minute and then we'll call it a night.
Okay.
All right, I don't see anything else come in. Lauren, why don't you put the last slide up there with your contact information and you can give the farewell.
Excellent. All right, this is my contact information for anyone who wants to get a hold of me. Again, my name is Lauren Kirk. The city's project engineer for this for this project. And I see I don't my phone on there. It's 760-633-2775. The best way to reach me is at my email address right here. Again, my phone number is 760-633-2775. All right, thank you very much. Have a good evening.